Good evening. Once again, Kenny Jacobs from Bloomington, Illinois. I'm going to talk to you this evening about current events as it relates to Bible prophecy. And again, I have a lot to cover. I just need to kind of get right into it. There's a lot of news stories from today. But first, I want to start this particular video with kind of a viewer mail segment, so to speak. This is a comment that I received on another video from a day or two ago. I'm going to read it and then comment. It says, "No, time is not almost up. There is a long way to go. I have been hearing this for over 40 years now, and I am tired now. Our lives will pass, and our kids and grandkids and great-great-grandkids will say the same." Well, all of you mockers and scoffers out there have a special place in my heart, because we are without a doubt in the last of the last days. I can say that in all confidence. No man knows the day or the hour. I certainly agree with that statement. Jesus said that himself. However, he gave us all the signs to look for, and they're all here. And so I can assure you, we're living in the last days. Not just people like me, the born-again, Bible-thumping, Bible prophecy geeks out there are saying it, but also the secular world and scientists and unbelievers are questioning whether we're living in the last days as well. The doomsday clock is kind of at 11:59, and everyone in the world seems to have a sense that something major is about to happen, and something really, really bad. Even our CIA is telling everybody to prepare for disaster. Economic collapse is coming, and martial law. That's coming from the CIA. Scientists are wondering what's going on. They call it climate change. People don't want to know the real answer. The real answer is this prophetic events prophesied as much as 4,000 years ago. And they're coming true literally right before your very eyes. Jesus called the days that we're living in right now the beginning of sorrows. So there'd be wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and famines and pestilence. We're living in perilous times. And I understand that throughout the ages there have always been these events, but never on a worldwide scale, on a daily basis, covering every single area. And then on top of that, until 1948, Israel was not a nation. But they've been a nation now for 66 years, and in control of Jerusalem since 1967. Israel had to be back in their homeland for it to be the last days. And then we have the technology necessary today for the one world government and the one world religion, the mark of the beast system. So all the signs are here, and for all of you mockers and scoffers out there, you're actually fulfilling prophecy yourself. So his quote here, that we have a long time to go. I've been hearing this for years. Our lives will pass, and our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids will say the same thing. Now I'm going to read a couple verses in Scripture. Jude, verse 18. "How that they told you there should be mockers in the last time, who should walk after their own ungodly lusts." That's Jude 18. And 2 Peter 3, verses 3 and 4, is almost a paraphrase of this guy's quote. 2 Peter 3, 3 and 4, "Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, Where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation." Just because Jesus has not returned yet, and I'm going to emphasize that word yet, it does not mean he's not coming. Without a doubt, he is coming. And he warned us to always be watching and looking and being aware of the signs of the times. Let's go to, let's see here, Matthew chapter 24. And let's look at Matthew 24. Let's start at verse 43, verse 43. But know this, that if the goodman of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find him so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But, and this is a key verse here, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him as his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Let's also look at Luke chapter 21. And let's start at verse 34. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Again, Jesus says, if you are not watching, and if you are living for this world, and you say, my Lord has delayed his coming, and that's what these scoffers are saying. People have been saying forever, he's coming, and he's not. We have a long time left. You better hope you're right, but I'm telling you right now, it is time to get right with Jesus Christ. He's the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by him. And by all indications, all the signs he told us to look for are here. He, I can assure you, is returning soon. And it is time to make sure you are ready. Now with that, I have a lot of news stories I need to get into tonight. So let's just kind of get going. The first news story is out of the Aretsheva today. And it says, Abbas's religious advisor promises Israel will disappear. Al-Habash, PA Supreme Sharia judge, says on TV, Palestine will return to us. All military and diplomatic options of resistance are open. He assured his televised weekly sermon last Friday that Israel will be destroyed, and that military options are being considered to make that happen. Now, again, this is the Palestinian organization, the one that the world is believing wants peace, the one that the world wants to make Israel give up their land to, the ones committed to their annihilation. And again, they aren't hiding it; they come right out and say it. This was a televised weekly sermon. You gotta love that religion of peace. When their leaders are preaching sermons on TV that says Israel will be destroyed and that military options are being considered to make that happen. He serves as the PA Supreme Sharia Islamic law judge. All this land will return to us. All our occupied land and our rights in Palestine, our state, our people's heritage, our ancestors' legacy, all of it will return to us, even if it takes time, indicating that Israel will disappear given the PA's claims to all of Israel. Patience is the key to victory, and we are patient. In terms of resistance, all options are on the table. The statement on resistance and diplomacy comes on as the PA is poised on Wednesday to submit a proposal to the UN Security Council demanding recognition as a state and an Israeli withdrawal from Judea and Samaria within 2 years. In October, al-Habash taught that Islam prohibits accepting Israel's existence because the entire land of Palestine is Islamic waqf and in an inalienable religious endowment in Islamic law. As such, he forbids making peace with Israel because he believes Islamic law prohibits the occupation of even a millimeter of it, i.e. the entire land of Palestine. Again, Psalm 83:4. They want to wipe Israel off the map, that the name of Israel be remembered no more. You can talk about a two-state solution all you want. It's not going to bring peace. We keep hearing two states for two nations for two states for two peoples living side by side, peace and security. They constantly say it that way. The problem is they're not going to be happy until they have all of the land of Israel, and they still refuse to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. All right, so let's go to the Times of Israel. I got several articles out of that today. Today is Wednesday, and they did go to the UN for their resolution. Here's an article. It says PA sets 1-year deadline for deal in UN resolution. Israeli withdrawal demanded by end of 2017. Palestinians say text open to changes. Kerry says no problem with thoughtful UN bid. The Palestinians set a 12-month deadline to reach a final peace deal with Israel in the end of 2017 as the date for completing the Israeli withdrawal in a UN draft resolution submitted Wednesday. The text said a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace solution that brings an end to the Israeli occupation and fulfills the vision of a Palestinian state should be reached no later than 12 months after the adoption of the resolution. It also defines a series of parameters for the negotiated solution, including a phased Israeli withdrawal from Palestinian territories according to a time frame not to exceed the end of 2017. Let's see if I can get down here to the John Kerry quote. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said earlier Washington had no problem with Palestinians moving to boost their hopes for statehood, providing it doesn't heighten tensions. The Secretary insisted, "We haven't seen the language yet. We don't know precisely what was filed," adding that Washington had been troubled by some of the language that had been out there at a different point of time. And John Kerry just got done meeting with Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat, as well as European counterparts of the European Union and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as the Secretary of State for the Vatican, regarding the resumption of the peace talks. Again, John Kerry says, "We don't have a problem with them filing some solution, providing it's done in the spirit of working with people to see how we could proceed forward in a thoughtful way that solves the problem and doesn't make it worse." Again, it's not going to be good for the United States of America in the long run when we are supporting the Palestinians and forcing Israel to divide their God-given land. Zechariah 12:9, the Lord says, "I will seek to destroy all of the nations that come up against Jerusalem." The word is pretty strong, destroy. God says he will destroy any nation that comes up against Jerusalem. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. All right, let's go to another news story out of the Times of Israel today. Let's see here. Israel warns EU vote on Palestine is damaging to peace. Again, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3 says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." Is it any wonder why that verse was written? Is there any doubt that it is 100% true and about to happen? Here's the headline again. Israel warns EU vote on Palestine is damaging to peace. Remember, the European Union essentially is the revived Roman Empire. They are the ones that are going to broker this deal with Israel and the peace agreement and the rise of the Antichrist. Israel rejected on Wednesday a European Parliament vote to recognize the Palestinian state as misguided and damaging to hopes of restarting negotiations that is said are the real solution to the conflict. Israel again stresses that the solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is to be found around the table of direct negotiations between the sides and not in decisions by this or that parliament. The ministry noted that the European vote tied recognition of a Palestinian state to negotiating a peace agreement, but warned that even the debate on recognizing Palestine damages the chances of renewing diplomacy. The final resolution accepts in principle recognition of Palestine's statehood and the two-state solution, and believes these should go hand in hand with the development of peace talks. Lawmakers approved the motion by 498 votes to 88. The resolution also urged Fatah and Hamas to end internal divisions and highlighted the importance of consolidating the authority of the Palestinian consensus government. The Palestinian Authority estimates that 135 countries have now recognized Palestine as a state, although that number is being disputed. All right, let's move on, because again, there's a lot more news stories. But again, the whole world is turning against Israel right now. Geneva Conventions invoke rights of Palestinians. This is also out of the Times of Israel Day. 126 countries urge Israel to halt construction in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. U.S., Canada, and Australia stay away. How much longer, though, is the U.S. going to stay away from completely putting pressure on Israel and turning it completely against her? Only time will tell. Much of the international community delivered a stinging rebuke to Israeli construction in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, saying Wednesday the practice violates its responsibilities as an occupying power. Again, that's basically just like saying if Canada was to tell us, you can't build in Washington, D.C. We're telling Israel they cannot build in their own land, in their own capital. The Geneva Conventions governs the rules of war and military occupation. The problem is it's not military occupation. They can call it military occupation all they want. It's their land. Nations that took part in a one-day conference in Geneva emphasized that all serious violations of international humanitarian law must be investigated and that all those responsible should be brought to justice, according to the 10-point declaration. Okay, but during the Gaza war, when Hamas was firing missiles out of hospitals, out of neighborhoods, out of schools, using women and children to protect their missiles, while Israel was using their missiles to protect their women and children. But Israel's the one being condemned, not the Palestinians. And Israel's being blamed now for serious violations of humanitarian law by trying to build on their own land. Unbelievable. The Israeli Foreign Ministry condemned the decision to hold the summit, calling it a political move whose sole aim is to utilize the important stage of the Geneva Conventions for the sake of denigrating Israel. This is a signal, and we can hope that words count. 5, it said. The declaration emphasizes one aspect of the Geneva Conventions, a prohibition on colonizing occupied land. Israel contends the prohibition shouldn't apply to the West Bank and Gaza because their sovereignty is in limbo with Jordan and Egypt, no longer claiming them and the Palestinians, never having their own state. All right. UN General Assembly upgraded Palestine to a non-member observer state of the world body in 2012. All right, let's move on. A lot going on. EU backs recognition of Palestinian state in principle. That was covered in another article I just did, so I'm not going to go back through that one again. Here's another article. Israel cries foul after EU strikes Hamas from the terror list. Again, the Gaza war. Hamas is basically trying to see how many of their civilians they can have Israel kill to make Israel look bad. Israel was warning the Palestinians, sending them text messages, doing everything they could to tell them to get out of harm's way and to leave, that they were going to be attacking in that area. And in fact, when they were getting ready to attack and saw civilians in the area, quite often they did not attack. They did everything they could to prevent civilian deaths. This again, out of the times of Israel. Assets of group to remain frozen after ruling issue on technicality, but Netanyahu says Jerusalem is not satisfied. Hamas praises the move. The Palestinian Islamic group Hamas must be removed from the EU's terrorism blacklist, but its assets will stay frozen. The move, described by the European Union as a technicality, quickly drew Israel condemnation and praise from the Gaza-based organization. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called on the EU to return the group to the terror list, saying Israel was not satisfied with the EU's explanation that taking Hamas off the terror list is a technical matter. The burden of proof falls on the EU, and we expect it to permanently return Hamas to the list, so everyone will understand that it is an inseparable part of it. Hamas is a murderous terror group that emphasizes in its charter that its goal is to destroy Israel. The EU will continue to uphold the principles of the Middle East Quartet, which implies that it will not engage with Hamas until the group renounces violence and recognizes Israel's right to exist. Well, it's just incredible how fast this stuff is coming together and how much pressure is being put on Israel by all the ruled powers to give up the land and sign a peace agreement. It's absolutely amazing. Alright, let's move on. I've got quite a few other news stories I need to cover tonight, and I'm already 22 minutes into this. Let's see here. Let's start with this one. What is going on with Pope Francis and Barack Hussein Obama? They are working together, and that's very, very interesting right now. With the formation of the New World Order, the one world government, and the one world religion, with the rise of the Antichrist and the false prophet, how these two gentlemen, if you want to call them that, are working very closely and working on the same agenda. And I would love to really know what's going on with Barack Obama and this deal we made with Cuba today out of the blue. Well, here's the headline. Pope Francis played key role in U.S.-Cuba deal. This is out of the USA Today. Imagine that. Pope Francis seems to have his hands in everything New World Order, politically related, trying to bring on peace. Here we go. A personal appeal by Pope Francis played a key role in finalizing a deal to open relations between the United States and Cuba for the first time in 53 years. The Pope wrote a personal letter to President Obama this fall, something he'd never done before, and a separate letter to Cuban President Raul Castro. The letter invited the leaders to resolve humanitarian questions of common interest, including the situation of certain prisoners. The Vatican said it received delegations from both countries in October and helped facilitate a dialogue. That resulted in a major U.S. policy shift toward Cuba, including a prisoner swap between the two countries that freed American Alan Gross on Wednesday. The Holy See will continue to assure its support for initiatives which both nations will undertake to strengthen their bilateral relations and promote the well-being of their respective citizens. Uh, it says their rationale from the Vatican is stems from the Vatican's long-standing desire to overcome conflictual divisions between nations. Said Stephen Schneck, who works at the Catholic University of America, is very much part of the Pope's own understanding of proper foreign relations. They're dancing in the streets in Cuba. Wow, is it crazy? There's just so much going on. We've got open borders. We've got executive actions out the wazoo by Barack Obama right now. I don't know really how this is going to play. I don't really understand this one yet. I got to keep watching this one close over the next few weeks. But it's just interesting that Pope Francis played a key role in this. Pope Francis is going to play a very key role going forward with the peace agreement in Israel, and ultimately, again, the New World Order. Let's move on. All right, this is an interesting article. This is how the Arutz Sheva today. This has to do with the Temple Mount. It says pure olive oil for the temple menorah. It says, what is the source of the powerful light of Hanukkah? Reunited in Jerusalem after a break of several weeks, Yitzhak, Reuven, and Rabbi Richmond are back together for this week's moving edition of Temple Talk. And it says, this week's Temple Talk provides a preview into an unprecedented and historic step towards the resumption of the service in the Holy Temple. Let me read that again. This week's Temple Talk provides a preview into an unprecedented and historic step towards the resumption of the service in the Holy Temple. The Temple Institute's production of pure olive oil for the temple menorah, created according to all the complex laws of biblical purity, a modern-day Hanukkah miracle. And it shows a picture. Anyway, they're going to build the third temple. There is no question about it. And they've got most of the stuff ready. They just need the temple. And it just, I'm starting to get the feeling it's not going to be that far off. And it's just going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. Speaking of the temple, now here's another, I just want to touch on this real quick. It seems like, every week the Palestinians are rioting on the Temple Mount, throwing rocks and Molotov cocktails at the police, assaulting the Jewish people who come up there to visit. They won't let them pray. If a Jew walks up there and even moves his lips, they get arrested for supposedly maybe praying on the Temple Mount. There's non-stop violence and Palestinian violence and riots on the Temple Mount. And not a whole lot seems to happen to them, and it just continues. But here's what happens to a young Jewish boy. This is out of the JewishPress.com today. Boy arrested. Boy, and he looks like he's about 8. If that. Boy arrested trying to recreate Hanukkah on the Temple Mount. Police arrested a Jewish boy Wednesday morning who had planned to go up to the Temple Mount. In the boy's bag, police found Hanukkah oil candles and matches. Clearly, the boy wasn't familiar enough with the original story of Hanukkah. When the police began to approach him, he should have started to play with the dreidel, however you say that. That's all it really is to the article. But a little boy was arrested, a Jewish boy, for trying to go onto the Temple Mount with religious utensils. But the Hamas and the radical Islamists can pretty much run everybody off of there and assault people, including the police, and nothing's really done. It's a sad state of affairs right now with what's going on over there. But again, you got to wonder how much longer are the Jewish people going to put up with this and not get their temple back. Pope Francis is so into harmony and peace and coexistence. Why doesn't he step up and demand more rights for the Jewish people on the Temple Mount? Well, maybe he will on God's timing. We're just going to have to see how that plays out again. Here's another article. It's interesting. Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Secretary General, had his year-end press conference today, where he summed up the world for the year and looked ahead to 2015. It says a year of discord, disease, and disruption that saw peace operations, diplomacy, and humanitarian capacities pushed to the limit, responding to West Africa's Ebola outbreak, terrorist groups, and ongoing conflicts in Africa, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon addressed reporters today at the United Nations headquarters, where he summed up the year and looked ahead to 2015. Recapping the challenges the UN family tackled over the past year, Mr. Ban noted that over 100 million people need humanitarian assistance, and more than 50 million have been displaced by various crises around the world, the most since the Second World War. The outbreak of Ebola in West Africa has challenged the international community in unprecedented ways, he said, announcing that he will leave New York tonight to visit Guinea, Liberia, Mali, and Sierra Leone, 4 countries most affected by the outbreak. But there was one thing that caught my eye I want to make sure I highlight here. There's a couple things. It says, after hostilities in Gaza this summer, Mr. Ban called on the leaders of Israel and Palestine to shoulder their responsibilities and step back from the brink, easing current tensions and salvaging the two-state solution, which was looking even more remote. They talked about climate change in a conference in Peru. At something called the UN Climate Summit. Again, climate change is the beginning of sorrows. It's prophesied biblical events signaling we're in the last days. Let's see here. They at this climate summit, they agreed on a draft negotiating text to serve as the basis for the next round of negotiations. There's something I can't find this paragraph. It's very important. It says progress was also seen on finishing the Millennium Development Goals and on laying the groundwork for a new agenda, including a set of sustainable development goals and the resources needed to achieve them. The stars are aligned. The stars are aligned for the world to take historic action to transform lives and protect the planet, he said, looking ahead to 2015 and 3 high-level meetings. There's a couple of financial development conferences coming up and another climate change, which offer the opportunity to chart a new era of sustainable development. Again, that sustainable development. Look up Agenda 21. They're going to start controlling the food supply more, controlling the land, controlling the resources, and quite frankly, sustainable development is another way of saying depopulation. The year 2015 must be a time for global action, he said, calling for international ambition on forging a new development agenda and securing a climate change agreement. So we're going to see more and more moves toward the global community coming together for economic reasons, which will eventually be the one world monetary system, the mark of the beast, controlling the environment, controlling the resources, the food supply. Again, how are they going to do that? Again, one way is through the mark of the beast. Can't buy or sell without it. Sustainable development, depopulation. It's all coming. All right. Wow. Let's move on. You're going to love this article. These jeans, meaning jeans you wear, these jeans use RFID blocking fabric to prevent identity theft. Identity theft, they're promoting this whole identity theft thing, and how, using your regular credit card and all that, and there's too much identity theft. This is talking about how people can steal your credit card information right out of your pants pocket. But now, here we go. These jeans use RFID blocking fabric to prevent identity theft. Developed in a partnership between clothing designer Better Brand and security software company Norton, a new pair of men's jeans as well as a woman's blazer will include a lining of radio frequency identification blocking material to prevent a trend the two companies are calling digital pickpocketing. According to the crowdfunding page for the jeans, the two companies claim that more than 10 million identities are digitally pickpocketed every year, and 70% of all credit cards will be vulnerable to such attacks by 2015. The Ready Active jeans will include this material on both the front and back pocket, usually the spot where you would store credit and debit cards in a wallet. In addition, the Work It blazer for women will include one pocket lined with the blocking material. It says, of course, there are many less expensive alternatives. If you're really concerned about digital thieves taking advantage of RFID, there are a number of RFID blocking wallets carried by online retailers. The downside to using that type of case would be having to flip open the case each time the phone is being used. Here's the bottom line. Here's what's going to eventually happen. This RFID stuff, they're going to tell you we just need to have it implanted. It's going to be safer. You will not get the identity theft. It's going to be convenient. You can not only use it to pay for stuff, buy gas with it, whatever, buy food, but you can also use it to open doors and use your passwords and all that stuff. People are already using it for that. And your medical records, like Obamacare. Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. That was some similar stuff to what this RFID technology is, and people are already getting the RFID implant in their hand to store Bitcoin, which is digital currency, and we're seeing more and more identity theft stuff. Eventually, they're going to tell you, you just need to get the implant. It's the safest, most convenient way to do things. And people are going to line up for it. They're going to want it. Do not ever do it. Period. There's no good reason to do it. And if you get the mark of the beast, you are eternally lost. You will go to hell. That's what happens. That's what the Bible says. If you don't get the mark of the beast during the final 7-year period, really during the final 3.5-year period of time when it's enforced, if you don't get it, chances are you'll be beheaded. But it's better to be beheaded and live with eternal life than to get it and be eternally damned. One more news article tonight. Out of Now the End Begins. Excuse me, this one's out of Before It's News. Outrage sparks as Obama forms partnership with communist Cuba. Again, I just love to know what the real details are about this. Why are we doing that right now? Obama declares communist Cuba to be a friend to the United States of America. Community organizer Barack Hussein Obama was created in the fires of American communism. His mentors like Bill Ayers, Frank Marshall Davis, Addie Wyatt, and others educated and indoctrinated the young Obama with the liberal, progressive, Democrat, socialist ideals he has carried into the White House. All Obama's heroes are made from this same mold, but Saul Alinsky and his anti-American tone, rules for radicals, provided his Bible and handbook for social change and rebellion. So his declaration today of the new friendship he is creating with the murderous, oppressive Castro regime is right in line with his plan to dismantle America as we knew it. Again, we're coming up to the last couple of years of his second term. He's going to be making a lot of changes between now and then, I believe, and he's going to finish off America. He wanted to fundamentally change it, and he certainly has. President Barack Obama declared the end of America's outdated approach to Cuba Wednesday, announcing the reestablishment of diplomatic relations as well as economic and travel ties with the communist island, a historic shift in U.S. policy that aims to bring an end to half a century of Cold War enmity. Isolation has not worked. It's time for a new approach. We will begin to normalize relations between the U.S. and Cuba, he added. We will end an outdated approach that for decades has failed to advance our interests. Wow. Things in this world are changing so fast. It is absolutely amazing. And again, with all the mockers and the scoffers out in full force, all the lukewarm people, all the people in the church falling away from the true gospel of Jesus Christ, which is exactly what the Bible told us would happen. The true gospel people don't want to hear it anymore. They don't want to hear that Jesus is the only way. They want to believe there's many paths. Make your own God that suits your lifestyle, because God is love and He wouldn't judge anybody. He wants you to be happy. So create your own God. We're all going to the same place. That is a lie from the pit of hell. And we are running out of time. If you do not know you're saved, there is still salvation available, but through Jesus and only Jesus. Turn to Him in faith and repentance, and He will save you through grace, but you are running out of time. All these news stories every day are coming together. It won't be long before the New World Order rises, the Antichrist will be revealed, the false prophet will enforce the one world religion. Israel will have their land divided. There will be a two-state solution of some sort. But they will get their temple, and we're seeing all of those things happen in the news right now. So keep looking up and make sure you're ready. God bless everyone.